So the Nintendo Switch 2 launched vaguely a month ago and has since taken the world by storm, selling over 3.5 million units in its first week. And one of those units was mine. You guys are going to want to sit down for this, but I actually never owned a Nintendo Switch 1. The only Nintendo console I owned previously was the Wii I had growing up, and the selection of games I had was limited to Mario, Lego, and miscellaneous. But by the time I didn't have to rely on my parents to buy me expensive video game consoles, I decided I'd rather wait for the next Nintendo console than spend a Switch like 6 years into its lifespan. And then I bought a PS5. But on January 16th, 2025, Nintendo finally announced the Switch 2, and I was hyped. Eventually, we got a whole direct focusing on the Switch 2's new features, and a whole bunch of games that would be coming soon, including Mario Kart World, Metroid Prime 4, Donkey Kong Bonanza, upgraded versions of games like Kirby and the Forgotten Land and Breath of the Wild, and most importantly, Puyo Puyo Tetris 2. Because what do you need more than Puyo Puyo Tetris? Another one. It all seemed perfect. Too perfect, as it would turn out, because immediately after the Direct, people went online and discovered the prices for the Switch 2 and its games. And people went bananas. That was funnier in my head. $450 for the Switch 2, $85 for the Pro Controller, $95 for the Joy-Cons, $55 for the camera, $25 for the Joy-Con wheel. I wrote shutters in the script. And most devastatingly, $70 for Switch 2 titles, and $80 for select titles like Mario Kart. Dear Lord. Now, considering I'm a Nintendo fan and I was going to buy the console anyway from the start, even if I had to save a lot of money in the process, I don't have much room to complain. $450 for the console isn't even that bad in my opinion, especially considering what it's capable of. But I can still say, hey, $80 for games is a little crazy, maybe dial it back a bit, especially considering the rest of the gaming industry will most likely follow since, spoilers, Mario Kart World sold like hotcakes. If Astrobot 2 is $80, I will jump off a cliff. Also, I'm not going to chastise strangers online for buying the Switch 2, or even Mario Kart. It's their money, what they choose to spend it on is none of my concern. Be upset with Nintendo for their anti-consumer practices, not people who just want to spend their hard-earned cash to play Mario Kart. They can die in a hole if they bought Switch 2 Joy-Con wheels though. Before we start talking about the actual console, I have to first reflect on what a nightmare the pre-ordering process was. Pre-orders went live at 9 PM where I live, and it sold out on Target minutes before then. Best Buy fell asleep, I guess, because pre-orders didn't start until half an hour after 9 PM. And even then it would kick you out of the virtual queue based on pure chance. Which is what happened to me. Walmart was also doing pre-orders, but I was not paying attention to what was going on there to be honest, because I would rather die than get my expensive video game console shipped by underpaid Walmart employees. GameStop had both in-person and online pre-orders the next day. I tried the online pre-order first, but with no success. I then went to my local GameStop to do an in-person pre-order, but I severely underestimated the amount of people who would be there. I saw the line, and I didn't even get out of the car. So pre-ordering was a bust for me, but thankfully Costco came in clutch and announced that they would have stock in-store on launch day. So on June 5th, I drove to Costco at 5 in the morning and waited until it opened at 10. I was actually the first person there, which I will brag about for the rest of my days. I spent most of the time watching the Super Mario Bros. Movie and How to Train Your Dragon on my laptop, but once more people started showing up, we all started talking about how hyped we were. Even though I didn't get to participate in the midnight launch at GameStop or Best Buy, I still got to experience a mini version of that, so that was pretty cool. And fortunately, even though a lot of people started showing up near 10, I was one of the first in line to get my hands on the Switch 2. Even though I showed up first, but you know, I'm just nice like that. I ended up spending $520 on Costco's Switch 2 bundle, which was just the Mario Kart World bundle with a year of NSO for $20. So thankfully, I avoided spending $80 on Mario Kart World. Hooray for me! I then proceeded to spend $80 on a Pro Controller. Right after returning home from Costco, I ran to my local GameStop and went in to get 2 games. The same one from earlier. One, I wanted Sonic Mania on Switch. It's my second favorite Sonic game, and I didn't have a physical copy even though I bought the game on 2 consoles already, so this was plenty necessary. And the second game, I didn't actually know what I wanted to get going in. There were a lot of games I wanted to try, like Metroid Prime Remastered, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, and Breath of the Wild, but I settled on Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. Why? I don't know, I wanted a new Mario game to play at launch. I'd like to say I spent the rest of the day with my Switch 2, playing all the new games I bought and trying out the new features. But no, I had a huge exam that day and had to go to work right after, so that was awesome. Despite that, I actually brought my Switch with me to class. I was surprised to see that my friend had also brought his Switch too, which he got from Walmart. After class, we tried out Mario Kart World for the first time, and I had a lot of fun. So putting aside all my thoughts on the game, which I'll get into later, that's the first thing I'll think of when the game is mentioned. Alright, enough of being nostalgic for something that happened a month ago. Let's talk about the actual console. However, I can't really compare it to the Switch 1 in any meaningful way considering I've barely used it. That just gives me a unique perspective though. I'm not at all unequipped to handle the subject matter in any way. Please keep watching. The Switch 2 feels great to hold, although I can feel my arms start to get tired after playing for a bit. Maybe I'm just a weak son of a bitch, I don't know. I never had a Switch 1, so my brain is still in the process of acknowledging that this is a portable device. My brain just sees a game like 3D World and goes, this is a game for the TV, or sees a game like Tetris and goes, this is to play portably. Still though, I've been having way too much fun taking this thing with me anywhere I feel like I'll be bored at some point. I took it with me to the dentist recently and I had a pleasant conversation with the guy next to me who noticed I was playing Sonic Mania. He talked about how he would play Sonic on a Sega Genesis in the 90s all the time, which made me, a kid born after Sonic went third party, feel like a small little baby. I've also taken the Switch 2 to the barber, to work, to classes previously mentioned, and I'm sure I'll be taking it many other places. People who have been using the Switch 1 since 2017 are more than used to this, but as someone who's never had a Switch 1 or even any handheld gaming device like a DS or a PSP, this is a completely new kind of experience for me. My parents never got me a gaming handheld, probably because they knew for a fact I would never put it down during family gatherings or road trips. And I don't blame them one bit, I would have done that. Back to the Switch 2, its kickstand is so much better than the old one. It actually works as a kickstand, wow, who would have thought? But you know what you gotta do when you're playing in tabletop mode? You gotta take those Joy-Cons off. Unless you want to play like this, you weird bastard. Taking the Joy-Cons off and on the Switch 2 is a major improvement. With the Switch 1, I always felt like I was breaking the thing whenever I tried to slide the Joy-Cons off. But with the Switch 2, taking them off and back on is incredibly easy and satisfying. Just hold down the button on the back and pull them off. When you snap it back on, I love that feeling. Do it again. Do it again. They stay on there as well. Even if you're dumb enough to hold the Switch like this, they aren't falling off anytime soon. The Joy-Cons feel so much better to hold than the Switch 1 Joy-Cons. I hated those things, especially when I had to use one on its side. My hands would immediately start to cramp after like one race in Mario Kart. But the Switch 2 Joy-Cons, oh boy, yeah. Just by making them bigger, they inherently feel so much better to hold. You still have to handle them in an awkward way and it's less comfortable than a standard controller, but it's an improvement nonetheless. I didn't even try to use a Joy-Con as a mouse until like 3 weeks after getting the console, but when I finally did, man, it was cool. You can only really use it in the menu right now, but I can't wait to use it in a game like Metroid Prime 4 or the next Splatoon. I don't really know what to say about the improved performance and graphics, especially since I can't really compare with the Switch 1. All I can really say is that it looks better, I don't know. From what I've heard, the Switch 2 is essentially a portable PS4, and while that's awesome, to be honest, I'm still waiting for when we get Nintendo games that are graphically on par with what Sony's doing on the PS5. Like, I just played Astrobot, and that's honestly the best looking game I've ever seen. Review coming soon, by the way. I really want to talk about this game, but other topics keep coming up. So when Nintendo comes out with Mario Kart World and are showing off its graphics, I can't help but think, it could be better. It's impressive for a portable system, no doubt about that. Leaps and bounds better than the Switch 1 at the very least. I'm just hopeful for the future of Nintendo games, I guess. What do you want me to say about the dock? It's a damn dock. I wish it covered up the entire Switch 2 screen, but I also like that the gap lets you see the system's battery. Yeah, that's pretty much it. While I can't compare the Switch 2 Pro Controller to the Switch 1's, this might have topped the DualSense as my favorite controller of all time. While it doesn't have the DualSense's adaptive triggers, touchpad, lights, or a speaker, it makes up for it by being very comfortable to hold. I don't know what material this is made with, but it feels a bit softer than the DualSense. The buttons are super satisfying to push, and the D-pad is much better. The battery life is insane as well. I've only had to charge the thing like once in the month I've had it. Compare that to the DualSense, which only lasts like 6 hours before dying. I haven't used the Pro Controller's back buttons, and I don't think I ever will, to be honest, but I appreciate that they're there. The HD rumble isn't as good as the DualSense's, but that might be because there hasn't been a game that utilizes it as well as Astrobot. Every footstep you take in that game vibrates the controller a tiny bit, and it's insane. Anyway, I still have some comparing to do with the DualSense and the Switch 2 Pro Controller, but man, what a great controller. I just talked about how cool the new Joy-Cons are, but why would I ever use them at home when I have the Pro Controller? In summary, I think the Switch 2 is an incredible piece of hardware that has more than impressed me. Do I think you should buy this if you're like me and don't have a Switch 1? Absolutely. Do I think it's worth upgrading if you already have the Switch 1? I am not the person you should be asking, but I'd say yes. If you have the funds, it's worth every penny, especially because you're able to transfer system data and use all your Switch 1 games on it. Except Nintendo Labo. Sorry to the 3 Nintendo Labo fans. But what do you use your $450 console for? Not as a plate, I'll tell you that. During my first week with the Switch 2, I was playing games on that thing every day for as long as I could. It didn't matter that it was finals week, I had to unlock Rainbow Road and Mario Kart World as soon as possible. Oh yeah, I should talk about that. I want to give this game and the others I'll soon talk about full-on reviews sometime in the future, so these will just be quick first impressions. I don't like Mario Kart World as much as 8 Deluxe or Wii, but I appreciate how they went for something new instead of doing more of the same. That said, I'm still getting used to the new parkour elements like wall riding and rail grinding. Are we sure this isn't a Sonic racing game? I haven't done too much in the free roam because it doesn't really interest me, to be honest. I play Mario Kart for the fast-paced arcadey races, not the laid-back Sunday cruises. It doesn't help that most of the roads connecting the actual racetracks are pretty boring to drive on, especially when that's what you're racing on 75% of the time. It also doesn't help that the game feels much slower than 8 Deluxe. I don't know if it's because the roads are bigger or what, but it can feel a little sluggish at times. It takes forever to climb back up to first after getting blue shelled. But hey, there's a bike modeled after Rob, so the game's a 10 out of 10 actually. The best part of the game, bar none, is the soundtrack. I basically paid $50 for a flawless soundtrack with a free game attached. I grew up with The Incredibles, so almost the entire soundtrack being performed big band style is a huge win for me. Except on one track. What is happening? What makes the soundtrack even better is the sheer amount of tracks handpicked from not just Mario Kart's history, but Mario's history. There's tracks from fucking Mario Paint in this game, what were they cooking? I'm not ashamed to admit it, I teared up listening to this game's rendition of Egg Planet from Mario Galaxy. Gusty Garden, that's the track I'm most nostalgic for. Alright, the Gusty Garden rendition is beautiful too. There's so many bangers in this soundtrack, I need you all to hear my favorites. This is definitely my new favorite Mario Kart soundtrack, my new favorite Mario soundtrack in general, and is up there with Sonic Generations and Epic Mickey as my top 3 video game soundtracks of all time. I can't make myself more clear, this soundtrack is a goddamn work of art. Everyone involved should give themselves 10 pats on the back, no more no less. My only complaint is that there's no way to listen to these tracks in-game. No jukebox, no sound select, not even a track select thing like Smash Ultimate has. You can't even turn sound effects off in-game to better hear the music. This actually loses the game points in my book. You can't make a soundtrack this legendary and not give me a way to listen to it on its own without resorting to rips on YouTube. Nintendo, if you don't at the very least put the soundtrack on your Nintendo Music app, I will be very upset. Anyway, those are my first impressions of Mario Kart World. Why is World so hard for me to say? I don't get it. It's not my favorite Mario Kart, but that doesn't mean it's not a great game. The new features they added take some getting used to, but are really fun once you get them down. I assume. I still haven't. I'd rather play 8 Deluxe to be honest. It's worth getting the game just for the soundtrack though, it's that good. Not worth $80 though, holy shit, what were they thinking with that? I previously mentioned that on launch day I got Mario 3D World and Sonic Mania. I'm not really going to talk about Sonic Mania right now since I've played it countless times and this whole video is about new experiences, but yeah, I can play my second favorite Sonic game anywhere I want now, so that's awesome. Mario 3D World didn't blow me away like Galaxy and Odyssey did, but that doesn't make it necessarily bad. I'd best describe this game as Mario World in 3D. It takes the formula of 2D Mario and directly translates it into 3D, which I think is pretty cool. They couldn't do that back on the N64 because the technology just wasn't there, so finally being able to do it must have been fun for everyone at Nintendo, and it's fun for me to play. Again, it's not as wacky and grand as Galaxy, or as open and fantastic as Odyssey, but it acts as a good baseline for 3D Mario going forward. But unlike Odyssey, I can play as Luigi in this game, so it's better actually. I will say though, I was starting to get pretty tired of it by World 8. I haven't even gone through World Star or even tried out Bowser's Fury. I'll come back to it soon, I swear. Most of the 3D World soundtrack is pretty good, but Super Bell Hill has been stuck in my head for an entire month now, and I both love and hate it. This is a small nitpick, but when you hop 3 times in a row, Mario doesn't do the big flip thing that he does in other games, and it bugs the hell out of me. Also, was it just me or was the final boss way too easy? Honestly, it might be because they tripled the running speed for the Switch port, and the boss wasn't built with that in mind. Anyway, I enjoyed 3D World, and I'll come back for Bowser's Fury in the future. Hopefully. I haven't been beating a lot of games on Nintendo Switch Online as much as I've been f***ing around with them for a couple minutes and then moving on to the next one. As someone who used to beg their parents to take them to the arcade so they could play Donkey Kong, it feels pretty damn good to be able to play it anytime I want. I will admit, I have been playing a ton of Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine on the Sega Genesis app, which, by the way, is the most revolting thing I've ever seen. You, sir, truly do what Nintendo don't. I was right to idolize you, I always knew you were a bit dumb, but letting the company you competed with in the 90s make an app for the very console that gave them a run for their money? Aw man! I'm still geeking out about it. That Sega Genesis controller manufactured by Nintendo sends shivers down my spine. I want it. Anyway, I've also admittedly played a lot of Tetris on the Game Boy. It's a good game for when you need something to do, but aren't in a position where you can play a more complex game like Mario or Sonic. The farthest I made it was level 11, don't judge me. I finally beat Mario 3 for the first time. I grew up with Mario All-Stars on the Wii, but I never beat any of the games because I sucked. So finally beating it after all these years felt great. I definitely did not spam the hell out of the rewind feature during the final world, no way. A game I was super surprised by was Kirby's Adventure, which is actually the first Kirby game I've ever played. I randomly decided one night to give it a try and ended up having a lot of fun with it. The copy mechanic is super creative. My favorite ability is the wheel. It's so fun to barrel across stages while ramming into enemies. Can you tell I'm a Sonic fan? Anyway, the abilities are fun, but they never break the game in half, which I like. The float ability does, however. I don't like how you have the ability to just float over pretty much everything. I don't ever do it, but still, I don't like that I have the option. I also keep accidentally activating it because I use the analog stick, and anytime I move it slightly up, Kirby inflates himself, and it gets very frustrating after a while. I also thought this was the first Kirby game until I looked it up and realized Kirby's Dream Land was the first. Oops. Anyway, for an NES game in the 80s, this game surprised me with how much it holds up today. You could have told me this was an indie game replicating the NES style, and I would have believed you at first. I haven't beaten it yet, but I've gotten the gist of it, and I'll come back to it sometime soon. I can't wait to try out more Kirby games in the future. To wrap things up on NSO, I think it's a great service. It gives me, a simpleton who's barely played any Nintendo games outside of Mario or Pokemon, a way to experience a bunch of old games I never would have bought on their own. And with GameCube games like Luigi's Mansion, Chibi Robo, and Mario Sunshine coming to NSO soon, I'm gonna have a lot of to try. After I beat 3D World, I immediately started playing a game I bought online and was really excited to try out. Klonoa Door to Phantomile. And Klonoa 2. I got the Fantasy Reverie series. As of this video, I haven't actually beat Door to Phantomile, so I won't talk about it too soon. But I think it's pretty cute. Klonoa himself especially, just look at this little dude. He looks like he'd wear a propeller hat and hold a comically large lollipop. He is my son and I will die for him. As for the game itself, it can get a little tricky sometimes, especially near the end, but it's a fun and charming little game. I love the art style and how vibrant the colors are, and the music is great as well. The story is also cute, although it takes a huge turn that is really hard to talk about without spoiling it, but holy shit, that caught me off guard. A lot of creators I follow have talked this game up heavily, so going in I was expecting a lot. I don't necessarily think it meets up to the hype, but that's not the game's fault at all. It's a fun little game with a surprisingly sobering story. If you like 2D platformers, I highly recommend giving Klonoa a try. I might make a full video on this and Klonoa 2 if I end up liking that game too. I love mascot platformers, so any of them are worth talking about in my book. Except for this mosquito bite of a game. As for what I want to play next, I really want to finally try out Mario 64. After 3D World, I'm going to take a bit of a break from Mario, but when I'm ready for more, 64 is up next. It's a really influential game, and many hold it in high regard, so I'm hyped to try it out. I also love the soundtrack. The slider theme has been playing in my head on loop for more than 10 years at this point. If it wasn't obvious already, I'm the definition of a casual Nintendo fan. I say I like Nintendo, but I've really only played Mario and Pokemon games. But now having the Switch 2, I'm ready to change that and try out all of Nintendo's different franchises that I've been missing out on. For example, the Donkey Kong Country series is high on my list. I love Donkey Kong, he's a chill dude. And again, now that I've tried Kirby's Adventure, I'm excited to play some more of his games. And of course, I need to play through the Legend of Zelda series, or at least some of the 3D titles. Those are some of the most iconic games of all time, so not having played any of them outside f***ing around in Zelda 1 is a serious crime on my part. But as for one I want to play right now, I really want to play Metroid Prime Remastered. I've always been interested in the Metroid series, even if it's only because I love the designs of Samus's various suits. And with Prime 4 on the horizon, now is probably the best time to finally take my first step into the franchise. I wanted to play Dread first because I'm in love with that suit design, but I've been advised that Prime 1 is a better starting point, so that's what I'm going with. Or maybe I'll get the Prime Trilogy on Wii, I wonder how much that is. Prime Remastered it is. The Switch 2 marks a new era for Nintendo, even if it feels like the Switch 1 all over again to some extent. I think it will be exciting to see how Nintendo uses their new hardware to make bigger and better looking games. And with games like Astro Bot giving Nintendo a run for their money, I hope competition can breed a bit of innovation. Who am I kidding? This isn't competing with anyone. Look at those sales. Who in their right mind would even try... Yeah, as I was saying, this isn't competing with anyone.